Hello everyone and welcome to episode 16 of our Raspberry Pi series, and in today's episode we're going to follow on from last week where we installed NZBGet and we're going to install Radarr on our Raspberry Pi. Just a quick disclaimer before we start today, we do not condone piracy in any shape or form. If you guys are using Usenet and you're downloading files, please make sure you have the correct licensing to do that and that you are following the laws in your country. If you guys haven't followed our previous episodes, I do recommend that you go back and watch them so that you can have a similar setup to us. But just so you know what you're going to need today, you're going to need Docker installed, you're going to need to have Portainer installed, and you're going to need to have an app data folder, and you're going to need to have a downloads folder, preferably on a USB hard drive because you want to have it on an external drive because downloading from Usenet, these files get pretty big. So you guys might want to have that kind of set up now so you can continue with today's episode. So if you guys are ready, we're just going to get straight in and have a look at what Radarr is, and I'll just give you a quick explanation of that and then I'll show you how to install it and configure it from there. So Radarr is a movie organizer that can be used to look at what films you've got. It can index them. It can also look out on Usenet for different file formats that you may want, and it can also look for upcoming and schedule different downloads for when they come available. So, I mean, as I said, it's a very good bit of software. It's great to work in conjunction with Usenet. It is also cross-platform, so it's available on multiple devices, including Windows, Linux, Mac. It also can be on some NAS devices like Synology and QNAP. And also, as of course, like we're going to be using today, it's going to be available on Docker. So we're going to be installing that today on our Raspberry Pi. So I'm just going to move on now and have a look at the network map that we did last week. So here is our network map from last week. And as you can see, last week we installed NZBGet. So we've done this part here. We configured NZBGet to work with our Usenet provider. So we now have access to the Usenet private service. So that's good. So what we're going to be looking at today is how to install Radarr and configure it with a indexer, as well as set up the API so that it can communicate with NZBGet. So this is what we're doing today. I hope you guys are ready, and if you are, smash that like button, give us a thumbs up, and we'll crack on now and we'll start installing Radarr on our Raspberry Pi. So the first thing we're going to do is we need to open up our SSH terminal, and we're going to have to create a couple of folders. Let's just log in first. I'm just going to zoom up a little bit so you guys can see what I'm doing. Okie doke. So we're going to SSH into our Raspberry Pi using SSH apt-key for the port 1984, which is our custom port, user 1, and then our IP address of our Raspberry Pi. I'm going to put in our password. So now that you're logged in, we're just going to take a little look at this stack that I've built for today. If you guys want to copy and paste this stack from today's episode, there is a link in the resources section below where you will find a dedicated blog post where you can copy and paste this stack directly into your web editor on Portainer. So this is Radarr, and we're going to need, depending on how many files you've got. Now I use my Radarr collection, okay, so anything that I download, I use it on my Plex server. And on my Plex server, I have a couple of separate you know, like I have like a couple of separate files that I use for different accounts. So obviously I have my kids that watch films. I want to make sure that they can only access the kids films. I don't want them to access the adult movies, etc. So within Plex, I set them up their own account and then I only give them access to certain folders. So if everyone wants to access the movie account, that's fine. You can just, everyone can have access to that. You can set that in Plex. But when it comes to downloading, say you wanted to download a children's film, you want to put down in the downloads section where you want the film to end up, and you want to make sure that you put kids movies on there. So then it'll go to kids movies, etc. So I hope that you guys understand what I mean by that. So I've decided to set up a kids movie file and a movies file. So this is for adult films, this is for kids films. And obviously we've got the download folder. That's where it's going to process the file. It's going to bring it down from NZBGet. It's going to process that file, and then it will move it from there into the folder that you set. So that's why you need to have these three locations. So we're going to have to now go into our app data folder, and we're going to set up this config file. So we're going to go to our usual place on our blue drive. And we're going to go into our app data folder. Okay, so we're just going to list out our app data folder, and you can see that we have all our previous containers in here. So we're going to make our Radarr file here. So we're going to create a directory called Radarr, and we're going to go into that Radarr folder, and then we're going to create another folder called config. Then we're going to cd into our config. So we're going to go into that path and we're going to use pwd to get the absolute path. And we're going to need this in our stack file. So we're going to copy and paste this. So this is our first file location that we're going to need for this first line. So anything before this colon we're going to replace. Okay, so that's outside of the container. And anything this side here of the colon is inside the container. So that's just for anyone who hasn't watched our previous episodes. So our next folder we're going to create is a movie folder. And so in fact what I'm going to do first is I'm going to do our downloads folder because that's our next stage. So if we go up a couple of levels in the file path. So we're now back at above our app data folder because this is where we have put our downloads folder in the previous episode. So you guys are going to need a downloads folder and you can see it right here. So we're going to go into our downloads folder now. So what we're going to do now is we're going to print working directory on our downloads folder and we're going to take the absolute path and we're going to copy and paste that into our stack folder under here where it says downloads. And we're going to need two folders now. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a media folder. We're going to make a directory and call it media. And then we're going to go into the media folder. Inside this media folder, that's where we're going to create our separate folders that we're going to give to adult films and children's films. So we're going to go make a directory. And we're going to call it movies. So that's for the adult movies. And then we're going to make directory. And we're going to call it kids movies. And we're going to go all small case with that. So we're going to go into our movies folder to start off with. And we're going to print working directory. And we're going to get the absolute path for the movies folder. And we're going to replace it here. And then the final folder we're going to do is the kids movies. So we're going to change this because we want it all to be small case. Just to not overcomplicate things. And then we're going to come back one file path and we're going to go into kids movies. And then print working directory. Right. And we're going to copy and paste this absolute path into our stack. And there you have it. So we're pretty much done with this. The only thing you're going to need to know is your PUID and your PGID. And how to find that is you go ID and then your username that you use for your containers and you use for your Docker user. And that's user 1 for me. And I'm going to just cut that out there. And you can see it says 1001 for the UID and 100 for the GID. So you guys replace these fields with whatever it says for you. Wherever you guys are in the world, change your time zone to where you are. If you guys don't know what it is, you can come into your Open Media Vault, date and time, and it tells you the correct name to put in there. So obviously if you're in a different country, it will tell you exactly what you need to put into that slot there. So Europe and London's where I am. So, okay, moving on from there. So this stack is ready to be run. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to copy and paste this into memory. And we're going to open up Portainer. We can cross out of that now. So on the left hand side, we're just going to come into stacks. We're going to click on add stack and we're going to call it Radarr. And we're going to copy and paste our stack into there. And bearing in mind that you've already pre-configured everything in here, then you should be ready just to click on deploy the stack. Okay, so that's been deployed. And now we're going to look in our containers and we're going to look at Radarr. I'm just going to check the logs to make sure everything is okay. Okay, so that should be ready now. So we're going to click on dashboard and we're going to click on containers. So looking at Radarr, it's on port 7878. So we're going to come into here and put in our Raspberry Pi's IP address. And then we're going to use the port 7878. And boom, we are in. So this is Radarr. And this is what it looks like, the interface. So what we've got to do from here now is configure it to work with our NZBGet. So we're going to do that first of all. So as you can see, it says no download client is available. And there's a couple of errors in here. So if you ever see any errors under status, just pop in and see what it says. And then it basically lets you know if there's anything not quite right that's not working. So on our blue drive, it can see that we have 890 gigabyte free, which is great. Plenty of room for any downloads that we need. So we're going to go into our settings here. And we're going to come down to download clients. And as you know, last week we did our NZBGet, which is here. And what we're going to do, okay, so we know this is on port 6789. So we're going to come back into our download client and we're going to click plus. And then we're going to come to this section here where it says NZBGet. And we're going to put in a name, NZBGet. And it's enabled. It's not on localhost. We're going to take that away and we're just going to put in the IP address of our Raspberry Pi. And that's all fine. And change these to your whatever your NZBGet client is using. And it says the categories is movies. It's fine just to leave it the way it is. And we'll go right down. We don't need to use SSL because it's all internal. And then we're going to click test. Okay, we've got a green tick there, so I guess that's it working correctly. And then we'll click save. Okay, so now we can go back to our home page. So as you can see, them errors are gone now, and all it's asking now is for an indexer. So we need to get ourselves an indexer. Now, indexes online, a lot of them are paid in one way or another, or you need to be invited in to use them. They're not just public accessible. So what you're going to need to do is try and find some invites for some of the other indexes. The more indexes you have, as I said earlier, the more chance you've got of finding some of the files that you need, especially if it's very old stuff. The more older stuff that you need, the more kind of, you know, not so mainstream stuff, you're going to need more indexes. So there is one that you can use out the box, NZBGet. And if you come onto their website and click on register an account, and then click agree, if you agree to the terms, and then I'm just going to create an account. Let's just go into here and go desk email on deck. So I'm just going to use email on deck to give us a email address. So I just want a temporary email address to use for this example. So I'm going to go back in again, and what should we call ourselves? Just call ourselves A2T, and then that's the email address we're going to use, and then register. Right, username, and that's our API key by the looks of it, which we're going to need. So we're going to log in. A2T, and use our code. Okay, so now we're in. So as I said before, you need to pay for these indexes. And it says here that a subscription is required. I'm not an affiliate for any of these companies. I'm not even selling their services. I'm just giving you one place that I know that you can actually get an invite to and one that you can use. Just remember, please, that this is for educational purposes, and I'm just showing you how this process works. So once you obviously subscribe to NZBGet, you will have access to your API key, which will be here. So this API key you're going to need to copy and paste into Radarr. So now we're back in Radarr. We're just going to come down to where it says System Settings, and then we're going to click on Indexes. Then we're going to click the plus sign here, and we're going to go down where it says NZBNAB. We're going to click on Presence, and then we're going to scroll down here to where you find NZBGet. Okay, and now what you're going to need to put is your API key into here. So I'm going to use an API key that I own, and I'm just going to show you what it does after you press test. You should get the green tick to say it's done. Then you can click on Save. So now you have added an indexer. You have also added a download client. So now what we're going to do is we're going to come into our settings again. We're going to come down to our profiles. So these are the different profiles that we can use. And basically what these profiles do is you can set the formats that you want to use and the presets of the formats that you want to use when you're downloading the file. You can actually edit this as well. You can come and say you only wanted 720 and 1080p. Or if you only wanted 720, it's there. But if you only wanted 720p and 1080p, you can click on here. And you can actually deselect some sort of formats that you didn't want. So if you didn't want the Remux or the Blu-ray, you can just get rid of them. So it'll only look for whatever you leave in here. So you can even set up your own default one. So you can come down here and you can set up your own preset completely of only the files that you want. So only the file formats that you want. Now this doesn't control the size or anything like that. You can do that in one of the other tabs. So we can come out of here and we can come down to quality. So within here, this will set the presets for all your files that you download from Usenet. So any of the different file formats, you can set the file size. So you can set the minimum and the maximums. So you can see here, you have some slots that you can move around. So at the moment, it's set at 5 GB pretty much for everything. So, you You know, that's about standard really, but you can pull that down. So say that you were wanting to download 1080p here, and you didn't want to use 5.9 gig as a maximum. So you can move this down. So this will tell you the hour. So this one here is the 60 minutes, 90 minutes, and 120 minutes. And this is the maximum. So you've got the preferred size or the maximum size, right? So the preferred size we can pull down. So say I only wanted sort of around about, I don't know, maybe 2 gigabytes. So 2.8, okay, is a maximum as a preferred size. And I don't want to go any, let's say I don't want to go any further than 3. Then let's say 3. So nothing more than 3.4 gigabyte. So any file that downloads will never be bigger than 3.4 gigabyte, and it will always look for your preferred size. So that it will default to that. If it can't find that, it will look up until it reaches that limit. So that's what you can do. You want to go through and set it for each one that you're going to use in your profile. So your profile here, just going to discard it. Depending on what profile you choose to use, okay, there's many here that you won't use all these. I normally stick to maybe one profile. I don't really need, sometimes maybe 2, but I think 1's maximum. So I use sort of around the HD 720 1080p. That's plenty for what I need. So the final thing we're going to do is we're going to go into media management, and we're going to click on rename movies, and we want to make sure that it says movies title and release year. If it has anything else on after this, just to remove it from there. This is all you want to have in here. So it will show the movie and then the year in brackets. That is how Internet Movie Database looks for files, and a lot of indexes that use Plex, they look for this file format. So you want your movies to show up in Plex. If you have a different naming convention, it might not show up in Plex. So if you downloaded film, it's not appearing, that's probably why. And then click on Save Changes at the top. So now that we've done that, we are ready to download a film. So we're going to look for our first film. Click on there. So now that we searched for our first film, I'm going to add the custom paths that we had to separate the movies file with the kids movies. So we're going to add a new path, and you should see them down here. Here's the kids movies there. I'm going to click on OK, and then we're going to come down here and click at another path, and we're looking for movies now, and there it is, and then click OK. It's an adult film. I want to download it to my movies folder. And then under our quality, we're going to make sure we have the 720 80p selected. So now that we have got our profile selected and we have got our root folder, which is movies, we can now click on add movies. So it gives you a little update down here of what it's doing. And what we're looking now is we're looking for the film to start downloading in NZBGet, which we've got here. And there you are. It started. As I clicked it, it started. So it's kept to the file size that we've asked, which is no more than 4 for this file format that we're using, which is, it says here Blu-ray. And it's picked up a 720p version, which is fine because that's within what we set on our limits. So I'm just going to wait for this to download. So Usenet separates one large file into small packets. It compresses them. So what this is doing now is it's downloading all the parts, all these compressed zip files, and it's going to download them into one place where it's then, in the next stage, it's then going to unpack them, which we're going to look at next. So we're just going to look at how our Raspberry Pi is performing whilst that film is downloading. So we're going to go to HTOP, and you can see it's using up a lot of resources. You just got to make sure this isn't affecting your other containers. You should be fine in this kind of setup that I've done. You know, you might even want to have your own dedicated Raspberry Pi to deal with these certain things, but, you know, it's managing with it fine. So as you can see, I've got many containers on here. You know, it's not struggling in any shape or form. So now that that's finished, we've got the unpacking stage, which this normally tends to take less of a hit on the resources, but it does take a little bit longer for this process to complete. And you can see here it says extracting from, and it's got this wild name here, and then what part it's on. So you can actually see the parts, the RAR files that it's downloading, which is same as zip, but it's like a different compression. So RAR, you can see that it's on 36, 37, so it will just go up through all them parts. Just going back to our movies now, we can see it has an activity folder here and a queue. And we can see that there is our file there with the progress, which says it's 90% finished. So you can see it in there in real time as well. This should update as it goes along. You can then see it back in your movies as well, any movies that you've added here. If you want to delete a movie, just click on delete, and you can delete the movie folder and get rid of that as well. So that's as far as I'm going to take it today. So I just want to end it right there. I didn't want to download the full file because it's just an example. I just wanted to show you what it's capable of and how it works. Next week we will be covering Sonar and probably Lidar the week after that. So this will all work in conjunction with NZBGet and Usenet. So stay tuned for that. So this brings us to the end of today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys got some benefit out of today's episode, if you could give us a like, hit that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you'll be notified of any new uploads that we put up. We'd also like to say thank you to everyone who has subscribed so far. We really do appreciate it. Our channel is growing a lot faster than we thought it would. We also have affiliate links in the description below. If you guys use any of them links, we get a little bit of commission back for using them. It's at no extra cost to you, and anyone who uses our links, we really do appreciate it, and people are, so thank you very much for that. So this leads me just to say now, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.